So, the first game you beat in 2017 was Crysis. What do you think of the story?
What I think of the story in Crysis?
Yeah.
Are we talking about just Crysis or Warhead?
Crysis.
Just Crysis?
Crysis, the original.
It was great until the last 30 minutes of like the 8-10 hour campaign. It had a terrible ending. Great story, terrible ending. There were some problems I had with the story. The biggest problem besides the ending with Crysis 1 was how quickly they let you in on the aliens within like the first level of the game. Like the ending cutscene of the first level of the game, so about 30 to 40 minutes into the game, you already know that there's something on this island besides North Koreans. And that was kind of disappointing. I feel like they could have Alfred Hitchcocked that a little bit longer and made it like a big surprise turn at the end, you know.
Did you like the graphics?
When I had a computer that could run them, yes, the graphics are absolutely incredible. I think it's very interesting that it was a game made not necessarily for sales, but more for showing off what the team at Crytek could do. It was the game that introduced me to terms like anti-aliasing, tessellation, high dynamic range, bloom, all that stuff. Crysis had a huge influence on my experience with computer graphic terminology.
Cool. Where did you learn about this game?
First time I actually saw Crysis was when it was first released back in 2007. Like, it was always a game in the back of my mind that I thought looked super cool because Nomad had a really cool like armored suit on the front, and it was a jungle shooter. I just thought the game looked so much fun, but there's no way I could afford a computer that'd be able to play it. Like, I never really forgot about the game just because it looked so good. I saw the cover for it at Best Buy when I was really big into GameSpot before they sucked, and they had the review on it. I can't remember who did the review for it, but they did a really good job and they gave it a 9.5, which during that day it was very rare that you saw games get over 9 on GameSpot. They were very harsh with games, even great games. That was back in college.
Wow. Was the voice acting and dialogue good?
There really wasn't that much writing until you got to the end, which is why I think the game kind of flopped, the ending. There really wasn't that much dialogue. I really appreciate the option to switch the Koreans' voices to actual Korean, because that made the game far more immersive. So it's much more immersive to hear a Korean shouting Korean at you while they're trying to kill you, rather than being like, "I got your number." You know,
Right.
I think the reason why it was so good was because there was so little writing. The more writing there was, the worse it got.
Do you think the music was fitting?
Very fitting. There were times where I actually didn't hear the music, even though there was music playing in the background, just because it was so seamlessly interwoven with the rest of the gameplay. It was definitely accompaniment. If there's any way I describe the music in Crysis, it was a good accompaniment to the game itself.
How about the sound effects?
Oh, fantastic. The explosions sound good, shotgun sounds good. As far as sound effects go, they're right up there with the graphics. Just fantastic sound.
Do you have any other criticisms for this game?
I wish they finished the game, because when Prophet goes AWOL and jumps on an airplane to go back to the island, which there's no explanation as to why he did that, and we battle the Mother Lode and then to blow her up, the big alien spaceship that comes out of the ocean, which that wasn't really explained either, why there's an alien spaceship that just randomly came out of the ocean. It says that we're going to go back to help Prophet, and then it never picks back up on that again. It's like they completely just dropped it and like, okay, let's move on to Crysis 2, and instead of making any kind of cohesion between Crysis 1 and Crysis 2, we're just going to pretend like the ending to Crysis 1 never happened and start over with Crysis 2 with a totally new character, new nanosuit, and have it take place in New York City instead of the jungle. I just want to know what happened to Prophet. He went AWOL, he jumped in the plane, he flew to the island, and we go out to chase after him after being the final boss. And I really thought the game was going to continue, and it didn't. It ended right there. It's a terrible ending.
I know you've sort of already talked about how awesome the graphics are and stuff like that, but is there anything else unique that this game brought?
The nanosuit. The nanosuit the Crysis wouldn't be Crysis without the nanosuit. It's kind of a catch-22. On one hand, the nanosuit really made Crysis. On the other hand, I felt like it kind of hurt the game, as it just made the game so easy at times. Unlike Far Cry, which could be brutally difficult. That's another criticism I have. I wish that Crysis had higher difficulty. Even on hardest difficulty, you could take a beating to the chest with machine gun bullets and just turn invisible and go heal.
Was the chair necessary?
Only for the happiness of my wife was that chair necessary. Yeah, that just ties right in with just that stupid ending. I mean, those last 30 minutes of Crysis, I just don't get it.
So if you were to give a final overall rating to Crysis, 1 to 10, 10 being amazing, what would you give Crysis?
I give it 9.1.
Nice.
I'd totally go back and play it again in a heartbeat. It was not a perfect game, but it was so fun that it kind of made up for its imperfections. It's like a game you wanted to hate, but you couldn't hate because it was just too fun.